unites people. Armies, gold, flags, stories. There's nothing in the world more powerful than a good story.
Everyone thinks that speech was the moment Tyrion lost his mind. A prisoner in chains, babbling about fairy tales while the most powerful people on the continent stared at him like he'd gone mad. The internet called it the worst scene in television history. They said the writers broke the smartest character in Westeros. But what if I told you that speech wasn't desperation? What if it was the final move in the most sophisticated political coup the Seven Kingdoms have ever seen? This video is going to prove something that will fundamentally change how you see the Game of Thrones finale. Not as a failure of writing, not as a rushed ending, but as the single most devastating victory any character in this story ever achieved. Executed entirely from a chair, in chains, by a man everyone had already written off. And it starts with a legal technicality that no one noticed. Follow the chain. Robert dies. Crown passes to Joffrey. Joffrey dies. Tommen. Tommen dies. No legitimate Baratheon heirs remain. Gendry doesn't count. He's a bastard legitimized by a foreign invader who never held constitutional standing. So the crown defaults to the person physically sitting on it. Cersei Lannister. Cersei didn't inherit the throne. She seized it. But seizure creates precedent. It establishes a new royal baseline. And this matters. Daenerys Targaryen conquers King's Landing. She claims the throne by fire and blood. Then Jon Snow puts a knife in her heart before she can consolidate a single legal document. The Targaryen restoration is dead. Jon Snow can't take the throne. He's the man who just put a knife in the queen. The Unsullied are standing in the courtyard demanding his head. And even if they weren't, Jon has refused the crown every single time it's been offered. He doesn't want it. He never wanted it. So the crown legally reverts to the last recognized monarch's next of kin. Cersei Lannister is dead. Jaime Lannister is dead. If Cersei's seizure created a new royal baseline, and it did because every lord in the Seven Kingdoms bent the knee to her, then the Lannister bloodline is now the royal bloodline. And the sole surviving heir to that bloodline is the man currently sitting in chains in front of the Dragon Pit Council. Tyrion Lannister had a legal claim to the throne of the Seven Kingdoms. Not metaphorically, not poetically, by the precedent Cersei herself established when she seized the crown as the last Lannister standing in the Red Keep. If seizure creates a new royal baseline, and Cersei proved that it does, then her sole surviving brother inherits under the same Andal succession code the realm has followed for centuries. And here's where it becomes devastating. In Westerosi jurisprudence, only a sitting monarch possesses the constitutional authority to rewrite the fundamental laws of the realm. When Tyrion stood up and proposed that the lords of Westeros should vote for their next king instead of inheriting one, he wasn't making a suggestion. He was issuing a royal decree. He used his inherited absolute authority to shatter the system. Then he immediately abdicated the throne to a successor he personally chose. He broke the wheel. But not the way Daenerys meant it. He broke it by becoming the wheel for exactly long enough to redesign it. If that just reframed the entire finale for you, that's exactly the moment people hit like. Not because I asked, but because something shifted. Hi, I'm Nick, you're watching Cynic Cults, and we're just getting started. Now, you might be thinking, alright, clever legal theory, but Tyrion couldn't have planned any of this. He was a mess in Season 8. Every decision he made was wrong. Every strategy he proposed failed. He went from the sharpest mind in Westeros to the dumbest man in every room he entered. Unless he was never dumb at all. Season 8, Episode 2. the eve of the Battle of Winterfell. Tyrion sits by the fire with Bran Stark. He asks Bran to tell him everything, the full story, the entire journey beyond the wall. And the camera cuts away.
You've had a strange journey.
Stranger than most.
Think about what just happened. The greatest political mind in Westeros just sat down with an omniscient being who can see the past and glimpse the future. And the show deliberately denied us the contents of that conversation. Every other fireside scene in that episode, we hear everything. Brienne gets knighted. Tormund tells stories. Pod sings. But the one conversation that involves the transfer of supernatural intelligence to the continent's most dangerous strategist? Cut to black. Because if the audience heard what Bran told Tyrion, the rest of the season would have made too much sense. Bran Stark possesses greensight. He saw what happened to Hodor. He saw the Tower of Joy. He saw the past, and he has seen fragments of what's coming. The theory, and it's not a stretch, it's the only reading that makes every subsequent scene coherent, is that Bran laid out the entire sequence. The burning of King's Landing, Daenerys' descent, the assassination, the power vacuum, the election. From that moment forward, Tyrion's incompetence transforms completely. He didn't fail to save King's Landing. He couldn't save it. The timeline required the destruction. He didn't stupidly betray Varys. He sacrificed a chess piece. He didn't naively trust Cersei. He was maneuvering around her. Every mistake was a calculated variable adjustment in service of a predetermined outcome. And the proof is in 7 words.
Why do you think I came all this way?
When Tyrion asks Bran if he'll wear the crown, Bran doesn't hesitate. He doesn't look surprised. He doesn't weigh the decision. He delivers a line that retroactively confirms the entire conspiracy. Why do you think I came all this way? That's not a man being offered something unexpected. That's a man arriving at a destination he plotted months ago. The fireside conversation wasn't backstory. It was the blueprint. But here's where it gets darker. Much darker. What if Tyrion wasn't a willing collaborator? What if he was a puppet? Bran tells us himself.
Bran!
I'm not really. Not anymore.
The thing wearing his face is the three-eyed raven. And the show gave us the warning in its very first season.
Don't listen to it. Crows are all liars.
Crows are all liars. And we forgot. The previous three-eyed raven was Brynden Rivers, Bloodraven, a former hand of the king said to have 1,000 eyes in one. He didn't protect the realm, he controlled it. Now his successor sits on the throne. Look at Tyrion's face during the Dragon Pit speech. Watch his eyes. He talks about the power of stories with the passion of a man experiencing a religious awakening. And that's the problem. This is the same Tyrion Lannister who spent his entire life as a ruthless pragmatist. The man who listened to Varys explain that power is a trick, a shadow on the wall, and then used that lesson to outmaneuver every player in King's Landing. And now he's standing there, in chains, delivering a speech about fairy tales. That's not character development. That's a man whose mind has been rewritten. Varys told Tyrion the truth years ago.
Power resides where men believe it resides.
The three-eyed raven didn't need armies. It didn't need dragons. It needed one brilliant man to believe, genuinely, completely believe, that putting an omniscient entity on the throne was his own idea. And it mined Tyrion's memories to find the exact philosophical framework that would make the argument irresistible. Tyrion doesn't break the wheel. He hands an entire continent's autonomy to something older and colder than any king who ever lived. Now you'd think, if Tyrion really did all of this, whether willingly or unwillingly, someone would notice. Someone would write it down. Historians would question the dwarf who served as hand to 3 separate monarchs, who orchestrated the defense of King's Landing, who murdered the most powerful man in Westeros, who directly precipitated the assassination of 2 different queens. Someone would mention him in the history books. Unless they didn't.
I don't believe you're mentioned.
Everyone treated this as a joke, the dumbest metagag in the entire finale. Samwell Tarly presents the official history of the wars, titled A Song of Ice and Fire, and when Tyrion asks how he's portrayed, Sam tells him he's not in it. People laughed. People screamed at their screens. People called it lazy writing. but the total omission of the single most consequential political operator of the era from the official historical record is not an oversight. It is a statistical and historical impossibility. Tyrion served his hand to Joffrey, Daenerys, and Bran. He defended the capital at the Blackwater. He killed Tywin Lannister. He triggered the chain of events that brought down 2 queens. You cannot accidentally leave that man out of a history book, which means someone ordered his erasure. The Romans had a term for this: Damnatio Memoriae, condemnation of memory. When the state wanted to destroy an enemy so completely that future generations wouldn't even know they existed, they didn't just execute them, they erased them. Statues pulled down, names scratched from records, the person rendered a non-entity. In the deeper history, the parts old Nan whispered about, there was another figure, the Night's King, the original one, from the Age of Heroes. Every record of his existence was destroyed. His very name was scraped from the annals. The precedent for total erasure isn't a theory. It's already embedded in the world. Tyrion didn't suffer the Damnatio Memoriae. He ordered it. On himself. He watched his father become the most powerful man in Westeros and get murdered on a toilet. He watched Ned Stark become the most honorable man in the Seven Kingdoms and lose his head for it. He watched Robert Baratheon, Renly, Robb, Joffrey, Tommen, every famous leader in this world, die because the spotlight made them targets. The most dangerous thing in Westeros is being important enough for people to remember your name. So Tyrion erased his. He commands absolute administrative power as hand to an apathetic, immortal king who spends his days warging into ravens. Yet to the scholars and small folk of the future, Tyrion Lannister simply does not exist. No uprisings, no assassination attempts, no rival claims. He traded historical immortality for total, uninterrupted contemporary power. And Samwell Tarly, the man who presents the book, owes his position entirely to Tyrion. Sam is a Night's Watch deserter who never forged a single link of a maester's chain. He's the Grand Maester because Tyrion put him there. That joke between them isn't comedy. It's a quiet confirmation between co-conspirators that the erasure was successful. That is the real power move. And it doesn't stop there, because Tyrion didn't just erase himself from the record. He built a system designed to guarantee that no one will ever accumulate enough power to challenge him. Look at the small council. Bronn, a sellsword. Sam, a dropout. Davos, a smuggler. Everyone called it lazy writing, fan service. But Tywin made the opposite mistake. He hired brilliant men, Littlefinger, Varys, men with their own ambitions and their own power bases. Those men destroyed the crown from the inside. Littlefinger ignited 2 civil wars. Varys bankrolled enemy heirs across continents. Tyrion looked at his father's corpse and learned, never hire anyone who doesn't owe you everything. Bronn loses Highgarden without Tyrion. Sam loses his chain without Tyrion. These men don't serve the crown. They serve the hand that feeds them. He institutionalized incompetence to build an impenetrable fortress of personal loyalty. And externally, the elective monarchy, the great triumph, the breaking of the wheel, is a trap. Real-world electoral monarchies like the Holy Roman Empire and the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth didn't eradicate conflict. They weaponized it. In a hereditary system, succession is predictable. In an elective system, the death of a king triggers continent-wide bribery, proxy wars, and political chaos among the electors. Tyrion ensured that the great houses will spend the rest of their existence fighting each other for influence over the next vote. No single house will ever consolidate enough power to challenge King's Landing. The lords are too busy competing for a symbolic crown to notice the dwarf behind the curtain running everything. The wheel wasn't broken. It was perfected. Aegon the Conqueror needed 3 dragons and a generation of warfare to unite the 7 kingdoms. Tywin Lannister needed the largest army and the deepest mines in Westeros, and still died on his knees. Daenerys Targaryen needed fire and blood and 100,000 corpses, and still lost everything in a single kiss. Tyrion Lannister needed a chair, a speech, and a legal technicality no one in the arena understood. He conquered the known world without drawing a sword, without raising a banner, without anyone, in the story or watching at home, realizing he'd done it. He didn't win the Game of Thrones the way his father tried to. He didn't win it the way the Targaryens tried to. He won it the way Varys always said power actually works. Not through armies, or gold, or dragons. Through belief. Through the shadow on the wall. Through the story people tell themselves about who's really in charge. And then he made sure no one would ever tell a story about him again. Here's my question for you, and I want a real answer in the comments. Was Tyrion a willing architect? A man who sat by that fire and chose to carry the moral weight of a burning city to build a better world? Or was he the final victim? The smartest mind in Westeros reduced to a mouthpiece for something ancient and cold that wanted a crown? Did Tyrion break the wheel? Or did the three-eyed raven just build a better cage? Drop it below. I want to read every single one. This is the part where most channels beg you to subscribe. I'm not going to do that. But if this video made you see Tyrion differently, not as a broken man rambling about stories, not as a victim of bad writing, but as something far more dangerous than both, then you already think like we do here. We're building an empire of people who refuse to accept the version they were given. And if you're still here, you're already one of us. You know what to do. Every move Tyrion made in the finale, the loophole, the erasure, the rigged council, he didn't learn any of it from winning. He learned it from a losing streak so catastrophic, so humiliating, that the show had to hide it behind punchlines so you wouldn't notice. I've already counted every single failure. That video is right here. See you there. Until then, stay cold.